This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast, a safe place to have a voice and talk about branding and all the reasons that bring a brand to be brilliantly branded. I am your host, Maria Lucia Romero, a woman empowering other women, and I am welcoming you to this journey of learning and inspiration to build awareness around the world of business and the world of brands. This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Our guest today makes us get into the world of storytelling and community building. We had the opportunity to hear the inspiring journey of a woman entrepreneur with a background in IT and humanities that decide to create and develop a brand that is not just about storytelling, but about fostering a sense of belonging and connection to Luxembourg, a place where she has found a profound sense of home. She is Julia Khalyavko, the creator of Bourgmeisterin, a brand that shares historical facts about cities and reflecting clearly her expertise to create value-packed content that resonates deeply with the audiences. We had a conversation about the brand origins and unique name and how her dedication and consistency has fueled its growth into a thriving community of history enthusiasts and local aficionados. Get ready to enjoy this conversation and learn how you can find a deeper sense of belonging right where you are. Welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. So hello to all our listeners and welcome to another episode of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. You know our purpose. I always like to remind which is our purpose, and it's actually to give this voice to all these women, powerful women that have been given shape and create successful and impactful stories. Today I have a guest that know how to tell stories, you will see. And she's a woman behind a brand who lives in Luxembourg and have been for sure learning a lot of things, building this brand up, and she will give us detail about that. Her brand is Bourgmeisterin, and she will tell us about how her unique approach actually to storytelling end up building a nice community. So without spoiling more information, Julia, why you don't tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you come up with this idea and this journey? Welcome, Julia.
Thank you, Maria. It's a pleasure being here. It's an honor, actually, being here. I do not get a lot of chances to talk about the brand. And yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and what you do is very valuable in the community and in Luxembourg in general. So my name is Julia, and I've been doing Bourgmeisterin for 7 months, I think now. I started last August. Well, that is when the project came about. But obviously, the idea originated much earlier. It didn't even originate in Luxembourg. It originated before I moved here. In terms of introducing myself, I am actually an IT person. So I've been in IT my entire life. So I belong in tech. However, it happened to me very unexpectedly because my background is almost entirely in humanities, sciences. And I used to study international relations and then public policy and governance, and a heavy load of that was related to history, primarily the history of just the world history, so the history of international relations. And this is something that my heart gravitates towards. So this is not to say that I don't enjoy what I do on a daily basis in my IT job, but we all have our passions, right? So this is mine. I had this idea of making history interesting. Basically, because while I was studying I was doing my degrees, like cumulative number of years, 6 years, and it's the same no matter the professor, no matter the university, no matter the actual subject. It's the same approach which is quite boring. And I had maybe one professor in my life that managed to make it engaging and interesting for people to actually follow the thread. And that was the only example that made me think that it can be done differently, it can be told differently, because what is history, right? It is it is a story. So it has a beginning, it has the culmination point, and it has an end, which it leads to something else, that leads to another story. And it is something that people can really enjoy if they can resonate with those stories. However, I haven't seen in this historic realm, I haven't seen this approach being applied that much or almost at all. Um, uh, and I think this is why history hasn't really reached a lot of the the members of the general public, and it hasn't been made or it hasn't been seen by people as something valuable to tap into, as something interesting to just to enjoy and to make a hobby out of it. And especially when I moved to Luxembourg, it took me a bit of time to adjust to the place. I think maybe half a year. But then I realized that it's a really nice place to be in and to live. And you have a lot of, the other day we were discussing it, right? You have so many blessings here, actually, when you come from a place that is not related to Western Europe in any way. And I feel like a lot of it is taken for granted for both locals and taken for granted by both locals and by those who come here, like expats. And after my assimilation period of 6 months, I started actually noticing the town itself and the country. But I live in Luxembourg City, so town is the closest landmark point, so to say, for me. And so I started noticing it, and I also started noticing that I actually have no idea about the place. So I don't know the place where I live. And back home, so I come from Russia, and most of my life I lived in St. Petersburg. So St. Petersburg is known for being probably the most European Russian city. It's very beautiful. There's a lot of history there. There is a lot of architecture, and it's also locally called the Northern Venice. So you actually, now that I'm saying that, I know that Luxembourg either used to be known as the Gibraltar of the North, and now that I said that St. Petersburg is the Northern Venice, I actually just established that connection during the conversation.
You are doing your job of telling a story. You are doing your job of really connecting the dots. And that what you just shared with us, I don't know if you finished, but I just wanted to add something, is how people have to realize where the brands and the creation of brands and ideas are coming from. That is basically, all the story that you tell, where are you coming from, where you was living, where you was having this experience of having access to all the history and all the things that you can really communicate to the world. And you arrive to a country where you say, well, there is an opportunity, and I will like to bring this knowledge, this experience to this world, to Luxembourg. So congratulations for that, Julia. I think this is something very, very, I don't know what is the words, because for me it's unique from the sense that you have been just doing and you start to building a community that have been growing so fast. So just to give it a little bit of context about how your brand work, because I have been seeing that you have a website, you have an application as well. you have a podcast. I mean, you have many different ways that the people can be related with that. But what is that? I mean, how you tell the story? What are the kind of stories that you tell? Can you share a little bit with us something about that, please?
Yes, so your community has been growing really fast indeed, without me really doing a lot or doing the things that I always thought that you have to do in terms of the community engagement online. And I don't have a lot of experience in that. Sorry, this is not something that I've ever engaged in. This is something that I am surprised as well. In terms of the brand, the inherent idea is to help people connect with the place where they live. And like I said, it came from the personal experience of living here and not really having an idea of what it is even. And it's not particularly portrayed as well. It's not like communicated by the government, by the, I don't know, public institutions and public channels. It's not something that the state itself makes a stress on, like puts a stress on. And I don't think that is particularly fair to the place itself, because it has a very rich history. And what people do know is that it was owned by different countries that surround it or used to surround it historically, that it was like a ping pong ball shared between those bigger political actors on the European political scene. However, what is not being highlighted, that before it even came about, before this period of Luxembourg jumping from one country to another, there was a whole chunk of centuries, effectively, when it was its own country. And I'm saying that right now, and actually it doesn't mean that it ever stopped being its own country. The people ever stopped being their own people. It always had its own identity. It always had its own character, which is very much very clearly defined in the anthem. That originated and was put together at the end of the 19th century, but still, I think it was the culmination, the point where it all kind of like this unrest finally came into one. Sort of was gathered in one point, and people finally expressed that we want to stay where we are. So you don't see that. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that it's not easily identifiable, that you can value the place for what it is, not for what it can achieve, for all these financial markets, for all this banking scene, for all that space, grandiose space plans, this sphere that is being heavily financed at the moment. That is all great, but also I think that history is what defines basically anything, whether it's personal history, like your past defines and frames who you are, your experiences, what you've been through, and same with the place, I think. You can't forget your roots, basically. And I think that without knowing, without remembering what was there before you even, I don't know, stepped into Luxembourg, or speaking about myself, there was something that existed and was pretty coherent and solid. So I think it's only fair to pay tribute to that. because this is something that defined the place as it is. And this is a strong foundation that just must not be forgotten, so to say.
Yeah, what is taking my attention is something that I found very interesting, and it's how you said you actually build your roots in the place that you are from. But here in this case, you are building roots in the place that you arrive to live. And I found that so impactful, because I think the sense of belong is part of the things that really make us have a different kind of life in the place that we are living. And this is what you are doing, and allowing people to know the history, to know the roots, to know what the things are coming from. So that is for me already a product, to say it, if we are talking about brands and products, that the world needs to have in order to really be connected and belong to the spaces that they are. Part of the things that I want to ask you, of course, related with the brand, is the name. Where this name is coming from, because I see it's a mix of different things. So if you can share with us the story about the name, please.
Everyone, it's like, how do you pronounce, unless a person is like maybe French, German, or Luxembourger.
Yeah.
Everyone has a question. Sorry, the word came to me literally out of the blue. I didn't do any particular research or anything. Sorry. Again, back home, this is my history, which I value very much, despite the controversial international situation that we ended up in. About 100 years, maybe 150 years back, we had a lot of German and French influences, and it also impacted the language. So we had, to this day, we have a lot of derivatives from French and from German, although they have been transformed basically to live up to our language. But the word Bourgmeister is something that used to be widely used, and it was a name for a political, maybe not, but public policy position that a person would occupy. But it wouldn't probably, the scope of the work for a person like that wouldn't be like a mayor, but it would be maybe like a state governor,
Yes.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you, in the Russian literature, when we're talking about Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, this is something that was used in most of their work, when they, happen to describe a situation with a character like that, because they had quite significant power. And I was curious, I'm like, okay, so this is definitely not a Russian word. So you most likely came from the German language. And then this is when I started researching. I'm like, okay, so does it exist still in German? I looked it up, and yes, it exists. And it means pretty much the same thing. And this is what it's used for in the German language. And then I researched further, and I found out that the same word, I mean, it's written a little bit differently, but the same word exists in Luxembourgish, and it also means the same thing. It's actually the mayor of the city, which is a woman, by the way, of Luxembourg. So this is a pretty significant.
This is a good piece of information. Yeah.
And in French as well. So this word also exists, and again, it's just written differently. So I started playing with it. I was like trying to make it up in a way that it would basically be understandable by the native speakers of all those languages, because again, Luxembourg is such a melting pot of most of those influences, right, that I already mentioned. So French, German, Belgian, which in terms of the language is very much like, like French. I mean, it's the same language for the most part of Belgium. But basically, yeah. So this is how I started. I started with the name, and yeah. So the first part, which is book, that exists in all of those languages, in the word that exists in all of those languages, and even in English, for that matter.
Yeah.
And Meisterin, this is the German part. I decided to leave it, but I also decided to go for the feminine version because, well, I'm a woman. So
Yes.
and I founded this this project, so I decided to pay a little bit tribute to myself
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think is the name is telling a lot about itself, because all the things related with the position of a mayor in a small city, telling the stories and connecting people. I think that is very well connected. I think I told you one day I love your brand because the name is making sense with the service that you are offering or the histories that you are telling, and as well all the graphic and visuals are connected very well. So congratulations, because I consider that your brand is brilliantly branded. That is part of the sense of this podcast. So I love to say that in public, because when I choose my guest, I just wanted to really celebrate with them how they have become with the brands that they have been delivering. So for me, it's something very good. You have been doing an amazing job. And I can imagine how the challenges and growing all the things have been around. So if you want to share with us some of those challenges that you faced at building the brand and developing, that will be amazing, because this is the way that the people can learn from us and from you in this case.
Yes, definitely. I had my fair share of challenges. However, before I like place them into the highlights, I also want to say that I received and continue receiving an enormous amount of support that I never expected to receive, never expected for people to show interest. And it was probably in the first months and the first 4 to 5 months after I kicked off, that this wave of of support and appreciation came at me, and it was it was challenging because there were all those ideas and also expectations to deliver on those ideas from the supporters, and I had to act very quickly. So the challenges were blessing in disguise, so to say, because they were related to that, like, enormous interest. Well, enormous relatively speaking, obviously, but the interest that came from well, now stakeholders, I don't know, but definitely partners and supporters. So yeah, related to diversifying maybe the content and the idea and the way it's delivered as well. My original idea was to start telling the story. So what I said in the very beginning, it has to be a storytelling technique. It just can't be dry facts and figures. It's not interesting for anyone. And then I had an amazing Lisa McLean. Lisa, if you're watching this, all the respect and gratitude goes over to you. So this is the director of Radio Ara. She suggested to do podcasts with them, and it's a completely different experience. I was never exposed to being a podcast host, and although my podcasts are not interviews, well, at least not yet, or they're not as long, for example, as yours, so it doesn't involve as much maybe production like work around them, but still it's a completely different experience. I've never done that. And also being at a radio, that was actually one of my childhood dreams. I always wanted to like find myself at a radio at some point, because when I was a child, radio was a big part of my life. as like one of the entertainment, like sources of the entertainment. And there I was in all these things that I needed to learn, how to like press all these buttons and how to increase and decrease volume and all this and all these things.
Yeah.
Very interesting, but very like not very straightforward at the beginning. And then my own internal struggles as well, creators speaking, creator to a creator, it's not very straightforward you can't be an endless source of inspiration or endless source of ideas. You have to put in the work. You have to dig deep sometimes. And in my case, I never really considered myself a very creative person. I'm more. I always say, the difference between the right brain and the left brain. So I always thought that I'm more on the logical side, organizational side, like putting systems and processes together, that kind of person. And then I tapped into the other side, and it actually started pouring. And I wasn't okay. So this is something new that I'm discovering about myself, and it's something that I never managed, and this is something that you really need to manage. You need to know how to approach it. You need to understand that it needs to be put in the particular context, because ideas for the sake of ideas, they will only get you this far. I mean, you have to understand how to put them to work, and this was pretty challenging. Creative people do not like the administrative part of their jobs. This is what I heard. But again, I always thought of myself as the person who respects this administrative procedures, so to say. However, it is not that easy. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because sometimes it's like, everybody's showing this beautiful part, but not the challenging part. And the challenging part is the one that makes us grow. And part of my questions there is all this content that you find and publish after that have a kind of a curation by somebody from the government, or because what you are saying is actually all the story about all the details, about all the things that have been happened. So to have a trust source, how do you manage that?
No one from the government. I'm open to the ideas if anyone's watching and who's interested.
Yeah,
but no, it's
we can make a call.
It's all mine. I will be the happiest person if someone from the government gets interested in a good way, obviously. But it's me. So it's just me. Like I said, so I was with my background in all these humanities, sciences and studies. Most of that was pure research. So you need to know the concept, and this is something that I started applying here. You need to understand what the topics are, and you need to research those. You need to see what's available. You need to be able to establish the dots, the connections between the stories, because one story very often leads to the other, to the third one, to the fourth one, and so on. And then once you've got this picture categorized, you have to research for search for the content, and I would probably, if I were to assess, I would probably say that both of these parts of the process are quite challenging, because Luxembourgish history is not very straightforward. It's something like, unless you specifically look for something, you will not find it.
Okay.
This was one of the challenges. The second challenge was, even if you find something, English language is not the primary language that the sources are in. And although I'm learning French and I'm becoming pretty good at it. And I am focusing more, like I'm engaging more of the French resources than I used to, for example, in the beginning. Still, even French is sometimes not the primary language, and it's the German now. So with my efforts to learn Luxembourgish, I mean, it is still a challenge, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
It is, and it is as well a commitment, because when you start to create a brand, to tell stories, and to, I think that people start to be used to receive the information, the content, people that wanted to really eat that content and enjoy what you are saying. And the way that you are telling the story, I think is very easy to understand what is happening behind, and especially in a country which we are a big percentage of expats, knowing the place where we are living, and actually they give us a sense of belonging. So this is the empowerment that we are looking for. So thank you, Julia, for bringing this brand to the world, to delivering this content, and to do all the things that you are doing to build a community, be part of the radio, be part of the podcast, communicating, generating content, and still living your life as a professional in IT. So congratulations, because this is something amazing. I'm always here when I brought my guests, and sometimes they are like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, but as well I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's amazing. I think that we as a women in general have this capacity to be multitasking and still delivering a very good quality in all the things that we are doing. So I include myself as well. So, well, Julia, I don't know if you want to add something. Thank you. If you want to add something else where people can contact you, you have your website that is going to appear actually in the podcast text. But if you want to add something else or invite people, if you are going to have more events or something related, please share with us whatever you want.
Well, at the moment, please follow. Please subscribe and please read. This is ultimately the goal, not just
I love that recommendation.
For my pretty pictures.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I mean, again, thank you very much for the highlights and the colors and how the brand is put together. Because again, I don't have a lot of experience in that particular realm. However, despite the fact that, I mean, even I myself like it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been posting it. It is, there is one step further. There is the actual content. There is the actual knowledge behind it, and I think this is again. I think I mentioned it at the beginning. The brand exists to help people connect with the place, and if you don't know about the place, you can't connect with it. And it can start as early as just knowing the stories about Luxembourg and about the places, about the people from here. Show you seeing and feeling some connections with your own story, with your own backgrounds, with what you've been through, with your past experiences. Could be in Luxembourg, could be somewhere else. This is the next step, and this next step is not always very transparent or straightforward. However, this is something that even like sometimes it's an internal job for people to do and show you to see the value in having the knowledge about the place, to be able to find home here and show you to plan the routes. Because I think that again, what I said in the beginning, Luxembourg is a very good place to live. So you, if you've been, in your in a rush throughout your 20s, for example, like I was, my panic years, if you're ready to if you're ready to stop and to find your sanctuary, so to say, I think, well, I mean, I'm not taking the weather into account, but but still,
this is different. This is another topic for another podcast episode.
Completely. Yes. You have to have a meteorologist that is going to tell you that do not worry, in 5 years we're going to be Australia here. But no.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I think that it's again, despite the weather conditions are not something that or not just something that can create this meaningful context, probably. And ultimately, what I keep on saying is that people themselves are responsible for creating value and meaning in their lives. And if you're just sitting there waiting for entertainment to find you, it's only going to get you this far. You have to start giving to the place, and it will start giving back. But it requires this first step. It requires you.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Thank you for your words. I think the sense of belonging starts by learning from the place that you are living. And I will do here a call to all these Luxembourgers that wanted to add value, that know stories about Luxembourg. They should be contacting you, because I think that this source of content will be so valuable for you, and that actually let us know as expats and people living in Luxembourg, knowing more about the country, knowing more about the story, and knowing more about how we can be included into the society and belong to this country. So thank you very much, Julia, for sharing all the story with us. I will leaving the places where they can contact you. And of course, in Luxembourg, we are always so accessible. So I guess on your LinkedIn, people can contact you. For sure.
Yes, anywhere. Okay. We have LinkedIn. We have, I actually, I mean myself, Instagram, Facebook, email, website.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Julia, for being here, and hope to see you soon around Luxembourg.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
We hope you have been inspired by this content and join us for future episodes of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We will continue exploring the power of branding and the stories behind successful brands. And remember, if you know a woman who has built a successful brand with a unique approach and a story to share, please refer them to our podcast. We would love to learn from their experiences and share their story with our listeners. Stay tuned for most episodes of Brilliantly Branded, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel for more branding insights and women empowerment. Until the next episode, ciao ciao.